and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the House of Labor. Welcome, everybody. On behalf of J. Timmons and Plumbers Steamfitters Local 342, we want to welcome you to the annual Congressman Mark DeSaulnier event. Welcome. I'm going to turn this mic over to the new district director for the Congressman, Janessa.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for being here. We are grateful that everyone is here to celebrate the Congressman. Thank you so much for again taking time out of your day. We're happy to be here. I want to take a few moments to introduce or announce the electeds that are in the room. So forgive me, this is a long list, and so I'm going to do my very best to get through it. And I want to encourage, before I start reading names, if we happen to miss anyone, I would like to, at the end, make sure that you get the acknowledgement, so please stand up if I miss anyone. The goal is not to do that. So first, I would like to acknowledge Aaron Hodges.
Hodis.
Apologies. Hello, thank you for being here, sir. Jim Kellogg. Kim Curiel, Lafayette School District. June Bouch Inole, MDEA. Tim Grayson, State Senator. Kevin Carlson, Board of Supervisors. Cindy Darling, Mayor of Walnut Creek. Lane Mackey, Superintendent of Schools, Concord County. Thank you. Diana Honig, Governing Board Member. Diana Beckton, Contra Costa County District Attorney. Cherise Cound, Trustee, Mount Diablo School Board. Matt Rinn, Art Board. Sue Nowak, Pleasant Mayor. Rebecca Barrett, Porcelain Board. Katie Woodcliffs, Chair of the Democratic Party of Contra Costa County. Newell Arnrich, Vice Mayor of Danville. Carlton Overture, Mayor of Concord. Leon Adams, Vice Mayor of Pittsburgh. I believe
you gotta yell in the microphone.
I will be yelling in the microphone.
That's still not yelling.
I will do my best to yell into the microphone. I would also like to acknowledge Holly Tillman. Thank you. And there's a few names that I see. We have Colin Coffey from East Bay Regional Park District. John Mercurio, I believe I saw you in the room also in the back from East Bay Regional Park District. And then I also want to acknowledge that we have the Young Dems providing service. I would also like to thank Steve Welch from Welch Wineries. And lastly, I'd like to ask all the volunteers, everybody who's volunteered to put this together, please raise your hands. Everybody. Thank you so much for being here and for helping. Now, I'm going to continue to try to yell into the microphone. I would like to take this moment to thank Tim Sabrante for being here. So, Tim Sabrante from the
I'll yell into the microphone. I'll use my teacher voice from being a teacher for so long. It's an honor to be here as a special guest for a special congressman. We're so lucky to have him. 4 decades plus of public service here in Contra Costa County. Let's give that a round of applause. At a lot of different levels. But the congressman for me is a personal mentor, someone that I've looked up to from the beginning of getting involved. And as I was thinking about what made him a mentor of mine, I reflected upon a conversation that I had with some of my own students recently. So before beginning my current role, I am currently proud to be the Executive Director of the Contra Costa Building and Construction Trades Council. So really proud of that role. But prior to starting that, as many of you know, I was an educator, a teacher. And prior to starting, recently, earlier this school year in fact, the congressman reached out and said, look, I want to do an event at Dublin High School, which is where I was. We want to do, a concussion event on concussions and have your students there. And students, if you know anything about students, they keep it real. Students will say exactly, they get right through BS right away. They know authenticity, they know those things. So we had Mark, and maybe this is a surprise, but not a lot of students at the high school level are inherently interested in politics, or maybe hearing from elected officials. It's just not, it's not their thing. So we get them there though. Congressman's going to present, has a panel, and you don't know what the students are going to think. It's on concussions. It was very specific to that issue and student athletes and things like that. So the next day I pulled some of my students just to kind of see, hey, so what'd you think? The congressman was there. You don't see a congressman in your school gym very often. What'd you think? And, the kids to a person said things that I think everyone in this room, we're all here for a reason. We love our congressman. We're happy to celebrate with him and his birthday. And they said things that all of us inherently know. They said, he seemed like he's so authentic. Just someone who is real. Not what I expected. Well, what do you mean not what you expected? He's like, you'd think that they're going to come in and talk in sound bites or talk in, kind of above here. And he actually talked to us as people. It's like, oh, that's nice, he kind of interacted. He was very friendly. He was very kind. He was very thoughtful. He was very conscientious. Like, all the different words are the words that any one of us would say who've known Mark for decades. But whether you've known Mark for decades or days, you would all say the same thing. And in this case, these students, it was less than an hour. But they inherently picked up what we know to be true about our congressman. They said, the fact that he was there on that specific issue, they said, did he try to get press? And I said, actually, I asked his office, I said, no, this is just him not wanting to do it for that reason. He actually just wanted to talk to get your input on this topic. Wow, that was just something that was so, but I think it just speaks to him as a person. We are blessed for his leadership. We know that he's aligned with us on the issues. We know that he's a fighter. We know that he shares our values. We know that he works hard, tirelessly, day in, day out, representing the good people of Contra Costa County. And again, when we think about so many different roles at the local level where he started, the regional level, the county level, the state level, the federal level, there are very few people that you could say, in all sincerity, this sounds dramatic, but I'm going to say it, you can think back in the history of Contra Costa County, there are very few that have had that type of a legacy of leadership and public service at so many different levels of government as our Congressman Mark DeSaulnier. And he has stood with the people of Contra Costa, and in my current role with the building trades, we are proud to say he has stood with us. He has stood with labor, and that has not always been popular or easy to do in Contra Costa County, right? To stand with labor. We have an editorial board of our local paper, Contra Costa Times. It's not always been kind to labor, as we know. But Mark has always stood, even when it was unpopular. Even when it was unpopular, he was there for us. And he would speak truth to power at whatever level that was. He does that now in Washington. He's done that now locally. And we know that he's been a leader on issues that are important to us, like infrastructure, on transportation, a leader, and always being someone like our current chair of MTC, that is the same thing, that reminds folks, Sue right there, we know this, that, hey, there are transportation investments that can be made outside of San Francisco and San Jose. There's a big county, Contra Costa County, there's a big region called the East Bay, and we know And Mark has done that from the beginning with MTC and all the way through, and now in Washington, fighting for investments in the Bay Area for our region, specifically in Contra Costa County, specifically for the East Bay, and someone that we know that does that. But it's very fitting, of course, again, he could have had his birthday party in a lot of places, but he chose to have it in a House of Labor, and specifically a building trades house. You know, our Plumbers and Steamfitters Local 342. And when we think about the Bay Area, a lot of times they talk about the innovation economy. There's not many places where you're going to see more innovation than you're going to see right across the way in the training center right here at 342. They do great work, the technology that's involved, getting skilled and trained workers, union hands on jobs throughout Contra Costa County. It happens right here. And of all the places in the county, our congressman chose to have his event here. So we also want to thank him for doing that. We want to thank 342 for hosting us. And this is a special union and a special place. You know, recently the congressman did an event with Senator Adam Schiff. We're happy to say that they're senator. But before he was our senator, even Adam Schiff, when we had an event in Walnut Creek, says, hey, you know, when I get elected as a senator, one of these times I want to come out to 342 and check out their hall, you know, because I've heard about the work they do there. So we're really happy to be here, and I want to turn it over to our host from 342, Chuck Leonard, to carry on with the program. So Chuck.
Thank you, Tim. And I want to thank everybody for being here. My remarks today are going to really be, I'm going to target my young Dems, right? So all the young Dems, all the young people here, I want to talk about relationships, generational relationships and how important they are. Because I wasn't old all the time, right? I wasn't this hair and this look, I wasn't born this way. When I met our congressman, we were young, right? And my mentor and the person that I get to introduce was my guy. In fact, I had apprentices here a couple years ago, and I get this old guy comes up and he says, hey, I want to need something up here, and I take my keys out and I go, here's a key, open every door in this building. And the apprentices, they go, well, who's that old guy? And I said, look up on that building. I said, his name's on the building, and his name's Jim Kellogg, right? And Jim, to me, was the old guy that I am today. But that old guy was, 40 years ago, was the guy with Mark DeSaulnier when Mark was a restaurant owner, right? And he was a Republican. And when, you know, generational relationships start somewhere, and they're important, and they're fostered over time. And so if you are a young Dem and you're here today, everybody that's 50 and older understands the importance of these relationships and the building blocks of what happens through time. You know, but the importance of the person that I get to personally introduce and who he is to me was his name is not only on this building, but when I was a kid, he was that person. I'm a 42-year member of this organization. And so I get to tell people, thank you. I get to tell people that I didn't drink the Kool-Aid. I am the Kool-Aid. Right?
All right.
But I didn't become the Kool-Aid without a blueprint on who to be and how to act and how we conduct our business politically. We don't engage, we die. That's the answer, right? We don't build these relationships, we die. And so we have to build these political relationships. And I watched Jim Kellogg do it for my whole generation and in my youth growing up. And I watched him do it diligently. I watched him do it with class, and I watched him do it consistently for decades. And I always thought if I ever get the opportunity, what am I going to do with it? But I'm blessed, because when I did have the opportunity, I had a blueprint. And I had somebody I could look to, and I had somebody that mentored me, and somebody I can still turn to today, and that I can ask for advice. And even when he comes into this space and he no longer knows anybody but the congressman, right? But that's all he needs to know is the congressman. And that relationship is important. And that relationship and what the congressman has done for us in taking our business manager, right, at the time, when he cut the ribbon, when he helped cut the ribbon on our training facility in 2018, he was the congressman that put our then business manager on the floor of Congress to talk about apprenticeship programs and the importance of apprenticeship programs. Never in the history of our organization had any congressman put a UA business manager or any labor person to talk about skilled and trained and the importance of apprenticeship programs on the floor of Congress. And that's who Mark is. But none of this would have happened for my young dents. None of this would have happened if this relationship had not been fostered decades ago between Jim Kellogg and Congressman DeSaulnier. And that's friendship, and that's true friendship. Thank you. And so I am deeply honored that I get to do this introduction. So with that, this is, and know this, that we all don't start out, like this. I spent 30 years in a hard hat working. Right? Jim, I once heard the Attorney General for the state of California, Jerry Brown, said he was once looking for Jim Kellogg, and he looked all around the Capitol for Jim Kellogg. And when they asked where he was, and they said, well, go look for him. He's sitting at the governor's desk. He's got his feet up on his desk, right? But I also saw Jim Kellogg, and I worked with him on a pipeline when he had his hood on, and he was welding out in the field. We all start in the dirt somewhere, and we all start as workers. So with that, Jim started as a welder, a business agent, a business manager, and an international rep, and a political genius in my local. So with that, brothers and sisters, Jim Kellogg.
Well, we've been doing this for a few years here now, and this is by far the biggest crowd, Mark, that you have there. So thank you all. I'm not going to be long-winded on my I just want to remind you that another good friend that Mark replaced in Congress was George Miller, who helped me make him switch parties. And now he is replaced. And so he used to be able to make it to these things too, but as we get older, sometimes we can't do things we used to be, and we used to do. So with that, I'm not going to go into, he's covered everything, like he always does. He does a great job. And all of you, I used to know every politician in Northern California, and most of them in Southern California, and they knew who I was. Today, I don't know hardly anybody here. So just bear with me, but he, as long as he's in Congress, I'm going to be his friend. And with my name on the building, nobody can stop me from doing his introduction. So we'll be doing that as long as he's hanging in there. And with that, I will call up our congressman, who I told last year, those of you who said last year, I said, go back and fix what's wrong with this country right now. And Mark, you got a lot more work to do.
I truly ever had an introduction ending quite that way. I'm back to work, goddammit. Well, first of all, thank you all. Really, really, very, 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 very much. Is Katha still here?
Yeah.
There you are. So I want to start by, especially after all the other introductions, see if I can get this right. Got a wonderful organizer from Rossmore Dems. There was one time I was at Rossmore, apparently I'm predominantly Irish. My mother's pictured by my table. I actually had these lovely conversations with President Biden about, I asked him, I said, did your mother ever say to get your Irish up? He said, yeah. I said, so did mine. And then when I got it up, she'd say, Mark, put your Irish down. I've got my Irish up all the time now. Anyways, I want to see if I can get this right in front of all these people.
We'll soon find out.
So, I'm a member of an Irish Talkers.
No.
I belong to a 12-step program.
It's called On and On.
No. I belong to a 12-step program.
We're not Jack Benny and Bob Hope here, are we?
Poor thing. It's for Irish talkers. Oh, it's called On and On and On.
That's the last time I'll call her. Goddamn Irish. So, first of all, I just want to thank, again, all of you. This is really wonderful and emotional. These are tough times for all of us. It's hard to watch, to tell you the truth. I know it's hard for all of you. It's very hard, just personally for me. For those of you who know me, I sit in that room built during the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln, they told the president, said, should we stop the construction of the new dome that was about half done by then when the war started. And that included the two wings that we currently use for the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives. So he said, no, I take it as a sign. We're going to keep the construction going on as the war goes on. So when I sit in that room, the House of Representatives, and I'll sit there and think of what's happened in that room for good and bad and indifferent. Next door is Statutory Hall, where likewise. But it's hard to watch what's happening right now. And as one of the last people evacuated on January 6th, it's hard to watch. So we are in tough times. And I'm going to be honest with you now. Before I go to that, just again want to thank all of you, but I also want to thank my staff. Thank you, Tim, for mentioning that. They do a great job. We've been recognized twice by the Congressional Management Foundation, a nonpartisan nonprofit that rates every office for different categories of how well they perform. We're one of two in the 50 years that he's done these. We're one of six between the Senate and the House, 535 seats over 50 years that have been recognized twice, and Janessa is working on a third that will make us the only one. That one might be the toughest because that category is being friendly place to work, so given me as their boss, we should have a handicap. But I've been graced, as all of you know, in both of my careers, in the restaurant business and in politics, by the people who I've been able to work with, and that's my staff. And I just want to thank them, if you could give them a round of applause. So, and all of labor, Jim didn't tell a story. I'm here because of labor. When I was at TR's, a Republican, but I grew up in Lowell, Massachusetts, listening to my grandparents talk about working in the mills, coming from Ireland and France to work in those mills, if you know the Industrial Revolution. And I just, if the history of labor in this country, the first labor union, you'll like this, was the women's textile union. Because they brought women off the farm to work in those plants, and they started saying, smarter gender here. They started saying, God damn it, we better organize. And that movement is what's saving this country right now, even though it's under constant attack, and it's been constant since Ronald Reagan. There's always instances where we go, well, you know, we don't like so-and-so or what they're doing. Well, that's more than true for the capital market and corporations. And we're way out of whack right now. There's the highest concentration of capital wealth in this country in our history. It's greater than the Gilded Age. Let me tell you what the Gilded Age got us, just to remind you. It got us 2 world wars and the Great Depression. And that's where we're heading for, is that kind of darkness. And the people we're fighting see nothing wrong with that. These folks, they're true believers. So you've got Trump and you've got Project 2025. When he first got elected, the Koch brothers, who had put a lot of my colleagues in place, they went and recruited people who were malleable to run in Republican primaries against competent, reasonable conservatives. Because they didn't want conservatives and liberals like George Miller and myself working with competent. There's a famous picture of George as chair of the Resources Committee with Don Young. If anybody remembers Don Young from Alaska, he was as conservative as you could get. And they switched positions from chair and ranking member depending on who controlled the Congress. There's a famous picture of them when they worked together on the Endangered Species Act. We don't do that anymore, but because once they got Citizens United, they had a vehicle to purify the Republican Party in primaries. They worked with us a little bit, but mostly was to get really, so you could go into committees and you knew exactly what they were going to say and how they were going to vote because it was on the Heritage website, generally. And then Trump came along, and remember they didn't like each other at first because Trump was going to take their toy away. Well, now they've figured out how to work together. And he's implementing their Project 2025. This is about destroying the social contract. This is about individual responsibility and merit partnering with what we do for each other. It's supposed to be in balance. I tell this story all the time. When you go in a Monticello, if the docent's telling your story, they'll tell a story about Jefferson being confronted with, why did he have a bust of himself facing Hamilton? And the person said, why do you have Hamilton there? You don't agree with him on anything. Of course, they battled at the beginning of this country about this issue. What's the social contract versus what's individual merit and what's the role of the community and government in that balance? And Jefferson famously said when he was confronted, he said, why do you have Hamilton there? You don't agree with him on anything. And Jefferson said, that's why. This is the balance that we're supposed to be arguing about. It's life. It's about the human species being unusual and how we've been able to evolve because we figured out how to work together. Well, they're trying to destroy that. They don't believe it. They actually, Elon Musk thinks he's the smartest guy in the world. Just because he's the richest doesn't mean he's the smartest. Definitely not the most ethical. So this is what they're doing is dismantling not just the Constitution of the United States, not just democracy, but our belief in working together. And if you work together, it's better. Education, which I'm going to fight like hell over, and then he's not going to be able to do it, by the way. But we have to be on guard. So explaining to people, you can't eliminate something passed by Congress, both houses, and signed by the President of the United States with an executive order. Administrations push this boundary all the time, but nobody's ever done it like he's doing it. Fortunately, Jamie Raskin, wonderful constitutional. I always tease him. I said, what are you doing here? You're too smart to be here. He's a very dear friend, amazing human being. Had a horrible tragedy happen to him. His son, he was there. He'd just been talking to him. He was a student at Harvard Law School. Jamie's 2 degrees from Harvard Law School, constitutional lawyer, brilliant. His son went down in the basement and took his life. So this is why he was in Congress. So he's a remarkable human being with tragedy in his life, but so brilliant. But he's in charge with Joe Neguse, who's another brilliant attorney for Congress, about coordinating with all of these groups who are winning all these cases. So when people ask us what we're doing, and I'm sorry this isn't getting out more, but we're winning over and over again, even with Trump-appointed judges. So we've got 108 cases. And in the lower courts, we've won almost all of them. The first time he was president, we won 78, I believe, % of the cases. People don't realize. And we were prepared for this. I don't think any of us were emotionally prepared for how bad it was going to be. And then we've got to get out in the street. So the people who are here from Indivisible and move around. We've had more fun down at Tesla. I'll be there next week if you want to join us. It's growing exponentially. But we're going to have more. And labor will be part of that. We're going to continue to be on the street, letting people know all over the country that this behavior is not acceptable. And we're going to get Republicans who have any kind of core sense of ethical behavior to be on the streets with us. So those are the two things. And then in Congress, we lost. And this is a challenge for us. People don't see the world in places like Ohio and Pennsylvania, and unfortunately upstate New York more and more, and Wisconsin. When I talk to my colleagues, and when you go there, their perception of the Bay Area and the rest of the world is different. And we've got to work on that. And the way we work on it is right here, this building. This building wasn't always this building, this cool. Where's Kellogg? Some of us remember when Sherry Circle was, when you were a kid. And this building is, Tim said it well, but it's really a remarkable institution. The UA isn't the biggest labor organization in the world or the country, but it punches way above its weight. And I'll tell you one little story. It's because of Jim Kellogg in particular, but the ethos in this room. They bring kids from every part of this community, East Bay, the Bay Area, and you should see what's upstairs. I could not, perfect timing. There's no way I could pass the test, right?
Yeah.
Chuck knows this. They took me up there. They said, "You want to take the test now?" I did. I had trouble with high school algebra. So they're bringing these kids in, and they're going into the communities where the workforce of the future were 20 years ago. The California building trade is 80% women and people of color, because they knew that was where the workforce of the future was. So they built this, and they built it realizing that they had to work with the community, with political action committees. One of my funny stories with governors of California, I was at the signing of AB 32, which is the first big legislation in the country about greenhouse gas over at the Presidio. And then Governor Davis comes up at the reception, and he sees me and says, "Oh, Supervisor, nice to see you." And he's going like this, and I'm like, "Governor, can I help you with something?" He goes, "Where's our friend Jim Kellogg?" I'm like, "God damn it." I'm a county supervisor, and the governor of California comes over and asks me how I'm doing in front of like 500 people. And he's like, "Get out of the way, where's Kellogg?" Sibling rivalry, I'm so good. So this place is about how we fix this country. And one of our challenges is taking it to the rest of the country, and this is where Derek is so great, who came from this hall, who Chuck was talking about, who's now one of the most powerful labor leaders in the country, who got his training in this hall, worked out of this hall. How do we go to Ohio? How do we not patronize them and lecture them and do what the expression in the Congress is ABC, anybody but California? That's what the rest of the country looks at us. It is a combination of, I think, envy and respect. But we've got to be careful. We've got to go and listen and say, if you want to have young people go into these programs and go back and work in these manufacturing plants that we are building right now, thank you to Joe Biden, and these energy infrastructure projects, then you do it with UA workers and labor workers. In the state of California, thanks to Lonnie Hancock, I was co-author, SB 54 requires every person who goes into a refinery has to have passed the state apprenticeship board's test and approval, correct? Jerry Brown called me. It's classic Jerry Brown. The governor called me when I was in the legislature. And I answered the phone. I said, "What's up, Jerry?" He goes, "This is SB 54. People keep telling me to call you because you know about this. Should I sign it or shouldn't I sign it?" This is my little pearl of wisdom. Jerry, I'm the chair of the Labor Committee in the State Senate. You appoint 5 people. We get to approve them. If we do what the Germans did, and the UA is at the forefront, and the IBW, where's Tom? Not leaving the rest of the trades out. By the way, Tom does a great job with the electricians in Martinez. He was moving furniture around correctly, so if somebody could talk about laborers, he was working on a craft. But they invested in these projects, these programs. So SB 54 Jerry signed it, and the one thing we talked about was, put people on there, it's not a political relationship in terms of quid pro quo. It's going to be, and Jim was the one who told everybody this, we're not afraid of taking the test. Our kids will pass that goddamn test. But if they don't want to invest in the infrastructure to train our young people to get out, to go out, be able to go out and work at these plants that are so important, if the non-union, then fine. But we'll pass the test. And what's happened? The non-union won't take the test. They can take the test, but they won't take it. So all of that is a circle of this message I have for you. When we work together as a community, the community, government, activists, labor, consumers, America's a better place. What's the secret about this? It's what the national motto that sits above the podium where I get to work says, E pluribus unum, out of many one. That's what this building is. So, we're going to get out in the street, we're going to win the midterms, we're going to keep fighting them in the courts. And one of the things they're attacking right now in the courts is the funding for all these, the Brennan Center, if you go on their website, ACLU. So just a big case yesterday about a law firm that generates $40 million for pro bono work for people to do good work that they can't afford to. Well, now he's putting pressure on the funders for the lawyers who are in these places defending us. So they're not kidding around, folks. I mean, this is the similarity between the 1930s in Europe is startling, and the Gilded Age. So think about that Gilded Age thing. I don't know if he's smart enough to realize it, but the people behind him are. They're attacking journalism, they're attacking independent outside experts. The first thing he did was fire all the inspector generals, who, it's like the LAO in Sacramento, go on their websites. They're required by law to be analytical and nonpartisan. The Republicans know this too. If he wanted to do efficiency in government, and God knows any organization can be more efficient, he wouldn't have fired them first, would he? And then put some guy who's got an ego that is world-class, much bigger than his income. By the way, thanks for everybody who helped him driving his share down. Conversations at the Tesla Walnut Creek from people who had the unfortunate timing of buying one of the products. One gentleman was saying, I feel so guilty, but that was before I knew what an asshole he was. So don't hurt their cars, just help them get rid of it. Yeah. I think somebody who's got a Tesla. So let me just finish by telling you, we're going to overcome this. It's as dark can be in a lot of ways. I have a hard time sleeping. I know you all do. But the way through this is just like it was in the Civil War, in the Gilded Age, World War I and World War II. We've got to fight like hell, and we've got to make sure that people know we're fighting for them, that we're going to change this concentration of wealth. And it's better for everybody. I like to use a quote in the Labor Committee that my Republican colleagues asked me to stop using. President Eisenhower in the 50s said, only a fool would try to stop an American worker from trying to organize. That's because we knew as a country that we needed each other. We had sent our children off to war, and people sat in those wars with people from Alabama and California, Massachusetts and New York, and they discovered, in spite of their differences, they were Americans first. So we have to get back to that, and we will, but we're going to have to fight like hell. So Jim Kellogg gave me, I don't know if you remember this, a number of years ago, he left at my office, I think it was my office, a poem. What's a poem? It's a statement from one of my favorite people. You know, I owned a restaurant named after Teddy Roosevelt. A Republican. That's the reason I was a Republican. Do you remember this? I still have it. And it's often called The Man in the Arena. But the title on his that I still have is Courage. And do you remember this? I'm not going to get it exactly right, but Roosevelt said, it's not the critic who counts. It's the person who's in the arena, who, if they fail while trying daringly I'm getting it absolutely right. And then they will stumble, and they'll get up and do it again. And their faces will be marred by dust, sweat, and blood. And in the end, they will not be amongst those cold and timid souls who know neither victory or defeat. That's what we all have to do. Dante said, the hottest places in hell are reserved for people who in times of challenge stay morally apathetic, indifferent. We can't do that. People ask me what we can do. Well, last quote, Frederick Douglass. He said two things, many things. He said, power doesn't seek power without a struggle. But my favorite quote from him is he walked up to his house in Washington. It's a park. If you ever want to go up, there's a young man sitting on the door. Young man gets up and said, Mr. Douglas, I've been waiting for you. I'm starting out my life. I want to know if you can give me any advice. He looks down and he goes, agitate, agitate, agitate. Agitate.
I will share two things. First, we neglected to thank someone very special that has made us all very happy this afternoon. I'd like to take a moment to thank Cindy Gershon for And second, as I still continue to yell into the mic, I might have forgotten some elected. So my apologies if I did not earlier announce you. If you could please stand and wave and make sure that... Thank you so much Amanda from City of Pleasant Hill, thank you for being here. Anyone else that we missed? Okay, did better than I thought. Thank you so much. And with that being said, it is now time to wish the Congressman a very happy birthday.
Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mark. Happy birthday to you.
First time I've ever heard Jim Kellogg sing. He's a better welder